Rotten!
Hey guys, this is Danny Boy. This time around, I just want to do a quick demonstration of the various abilities, the various primary abilities, and runes for the Witch Doctor. This will be on Inferno. I'm not going to really be in combat much, though. I'll just go into combat for certain abilities that really can't be demonstrated in town. I'd like to show them all in combat, but to run in and out of town to switch skills, or to just sit out of town and wait for the cooldown when I'm switching between runes will just take me like a half hour, so I can't do that. That'll take way too long. So to start, just Poison Dart. Weapon damage is poison, and 40% additional weapon damage as poison over 2 seconds. And you all know what it looks like, and you all know what it does, assuming you have actually played a Witch Doctor, because you start the game with it. Really basic ability. So, next, Splinters. Splinters makes it do 180% poison damage just instantly over 3 darts. So you shoot out 3 darts instead of 1, and this is by far one of the highest damage per second abilities the Witch Doctor has. Most optimized builds are going to use this and are going to spam this, which is unfortunate because you get it incredibly early in the game. It's like one of the first runes, if not the first rune you unlock. I don't even remember at this point. But it's incredibly effective even in Hell, even in Inferno. Next up is Numbing Dart. Numbing Dart. Numbing Dart makes the dart snare for 60% over 2 seconds. Really, you shouldn't be using this. There are way better snares available to the Witch Doctor, Grasp of the Dead being one of them. I can't recommend it. It only snares for 2 seconds. But maybe somebody out there really likes it. It also only hits 1 target. So, my opinion on that. Spine Dart can be nice for returning mana and really mana-intensive builds. Personally, I think either Draining Spirit through Haunt or Widowmaker Spiders through Corpse Spiders is a better option. But you can use this before you unlock those skills, and you might prefer this. It just does require you to stand still a lot of the time, to spam to get mana back. Next up is Flaming Dart. Flaming Dart makes the attack do 160% weapon damage as fire at once rather than over 3 darts. But you really shouldn't use this. You should use Splinters. You're not going to miss the darts on Splinters the vast majority of the time, and it does just straight up do more damage. And Poison has some other synergies, and can't really recommend bothering with Flaming Dart. Finally, Snake to the Face makes the dart have a 30% chance to stun for a short time, which can be useful on certain bosses that are not immune to stun, but you will be doing less damage than if you were using Splinters, obviously. And this isn't an on-demand stun, it is a proc chance. You can't rely on it to interrupt bosses when they're doing abilities, when they're telegraphing certain abilities. So, really, I probably wouldn't bother with this unless you were in a group with some other people that had stuns, that had on-demand stuns, and then you could kind of time it together or something. But I think Splinters is definitely your best choice for this ability by far, other than maybe Spine Dart for getting back mana. Next up, we have Corpse Spiders. Corpse Spiders are essentially an organic grenade. You throw a vase that explodes, and a bunch of little spiders pop out. 4 spiders come out. You can have a lot of spiders out at any given time, something like 20. Nearly 20, I would say, before they start dying. And they do actually die faster, I believe, outside of combat than inside of combat. At least that's been my experience generally. I could be totally wrong about that. You summon a lot of spiders that hit for a small amount of weapon damage, just 16%, but they hit really frequently and really quickly. The damage can really ramp up. That's the base ability. Then we have Leaping Spiders, and I'm actually going to demonstrate this. You summon Leaping Spiders that actually jump 2 enemies up to 25 yards away, and they do 19% weapon damage as physical each. They actually hit harder than the base ability, and they have way better uptime. Your regular spiders have trouble staying on really quick-moving targets, or targets that have moved away, or switching from one enemy that's over on like this side of the map to an enemy that's over on this side of the map without actually repositioning them with your actual throw. Whereas these spiders will jump across the map to other enemies. I used this ability to take out Diablo on all 3 of the difficulties. I would just spam it off-screen. If she would be off-screen, I would spam near the edge of my screen, and then the spiders would leap onto her. And that way I could avoid her easier and keep away from her easier. And I actually demonstrate that in my Diablo solo Witch Doctor kill video. So now let me actually show it in real combat. Okay, so Leaping Spiders. So I can toss them over here, and notice how they leap onto enemies. It's actually a very effective ability. Even in Hell and Inferno, they do a lot of damage very quickly, and they have excellent uptime because they jump onto their enemy. Personally, it's one of my favorite abilities. but your mileage may vary. So I suppose, though, while I'm at it, I should give you guys an example of the base ability so that you have an idea of what I'm talking about with the leaping spiders and how leaping spiders really improves their uptime. So let's find a group of zombies. So here's some zombies. I could place the spiders right here, and this is too far for the spiders to really get to their targets, and they all die. Whereas if there was leaping spiders, they would more than likely jump onto them. It might be a little too far, but a little bit closer, they would jump onto them. These guys, even there, it's just too far away. So you can see just how close enemies need to actually be to your spiders, to the base spiders, in order to actually get hit by them. It makes a tremendous difference in their uptime and in their damage. Likewise. Okay, so next on the list is Spider Queen. Spider Queen totally changes this ability. Instead of shooting out a bunch of little spiders, you shoot out one big spider that damages enemies in a PB AoE radius, doing 16% weapon damage per second to enemies in the area for 15 seconds. Personally, I don't like this ability. I was kind of disappointed when I saw it. You shoot out one big spider. I was hoping that it would be more of a... You shoot out a spider that just sends streaming spiders to enemies or something. But it's a very short radius PB AoE. And she will move towards enemies, but as you can see, you can only have one out at a time. I think, and it does say that. But enemies just move away from it. She doesn't move quick enough to stay on target and to keep solid uptime. Unless you're using some sort of root or a really powerful snare, you're not going to do a lot of damage with it. And even then, she just doesn't do that much damage that quickly, compared to just spamming a bunch of little spiders. She only does 16% weapon damage per second. You can accomplish that just with the base ability easily, and do as much damage, if not more, for her. Her big thing is it's just an AoE, so you're hitting multiple targets, but it's so small that you're not really going to hit multiple targets anyway. Can't really recommend it. Kind of a disappointment. Looks cool, though. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about with Spider Queen, I suppose I could actually use it. So here's Spider Queen. There's the damage. She kind of just waddles towards your enemies, and even this zombie, she's having trouble keeping up with him. This zombie's slowly moving towards me because the Templar's getting in the way. But even then, she's really not very fast. She's really slow. She just kind of waddles around, and she does not do very good damage. Let's find an actual group. She is designed to shine in group situations. Owie. But these guys move so quickly, there's no way she could actually stay on target. So I'm going to just kind of try to blow them up with Dire Bats so that they'll go away. And you can only have one out at a time, so there's no reason to actually spam the ability like I was just doing. Once you're using Spider Queen or whatever she's called. Yeah. Just see how slowly she moves to new enemies. And she really doesn't even keep up with zombies that well. I mean, zombies are really slow. Compared to most other enemies, you're going to have to reposition her constantly. Look at, she's barely doing damage. Finally, she's doing a little bit of damage to him. Her PB AoE is incredibly small. So personally, really don't think this is a worthwhile ability to basically use ever, barring having an actual root. Not even a snare, but an actual root, which, as far as I know, Witch Doctor doesn't have one. Or a solid AoE stun or something, but her damage is unimpressive. She moves too slowly. She has terrible uptime, and her radius on her attack is too small. That's what I have to say about that, basically. Anyway, next, Widowmakers. Widowmakers, I think, is one of your best bets for returning mana in mana-intensive builds. It's just like the base ability. You throw out a vase, kind of a bluish-purplish vase, and you shoot out same kind of spiders. Still, I think it's 4 at a time. Let's see, one vase. Yep, still 4 at a time. And the big difference between this and using the dart to return mana is that you can throw a bunch of these and then just move. And they're still going to be damaging enemies. They're still going to be returning your mana. You don't have to just sit there and spam to get your mana back. So personally, I think this is one of your best bets along with Draining Spirit. Though Draining Spirit costs a passive in order to actually get a good mana return ratio. I think this is probably your best bet, honestly. This is what I usually use until the very end of the game when you actually unlock Draining Spirit through Haunt. I think this is your best bet. Even with Draining Spirit, I think this is probably your best bet. If you don't want to sacrifice a passive, certainly. Anyway, Medusa Spiders give you a chance to slow with every attack. It's actually pretty potent because you do shoot out 4 of them and they attack really rapidly, so that snare does work pretty frequently. But it is still a chance snare, and I really don't think you'd want to use this ability to snare enemies. You can, If you want to go with a really hardcore kiting build and just use this along with your other snares available, I could see it working. So it's an option, I guess. It's just not on demand. You are still relying on a chance. But they attack so frequently, and there's so many of them, that most enemies are going to be snared when you use it. Finally, Blazing Spiders. Blazing Spiders hit for 21% damage. It's the hardest hitting version of this ability, and they hit as fire. Though they have the same problems as the base ability in that they have problems with uptime. Once enemies move, they move slowly, and they can't really keep on them. So personally, practically speaking, if you just want to use this as a damaging ability, I would just go with Leaping Spiders, because they have way better uptime. They stay on their targets incredibly well. And it's just more flexible and more tactical in the ways that you can kind of be off screen and use it from range. And I'm talking about Leaping Spiders right now, not the Fire Spiders. Blazing Spiders. You can attack from off screen and have them jump on enemies. So personally, I think your best bet is Leaping Spiders for damage, and then Widowmakers for returning mana, and maybe Medusa Spiders, but I've used it and I wasn't really impressed by it. I think there are better slows, but you can stack it with other just on-demand slows, 100% chance slows, and maybe do okay for kiting. Okay, next we have Plague of Toads. Plague of Toads is 130% weapon damage as poison to enemies that they blow up on. It's a lot like Charge Bolts from the previous game. You shoot out 3 frogs, they move towards enemies, you can shoot out a bunch, and they all kind of blow up. Really fun, really effective ability in my opinion. I think it's one of the most flavorful abilities that he actually has, and really represents the Witch Doctor well. So then we can go for Explosive Toads, which make them do a ton more damage. This is one of the abilities I use to level quite a bit until I unlock some of the other stuff. This is kind of my go-to AoE ability for a long time. They do explode. I believe it does have a radius as well when they explode. I think they can hit multiple targets in one explosion. At least that's what it seemed like in practice. It doesn't actually say in the tooltip, but I think that's a hidden bonus. And they can do a lot of damage quickly. They also seem to jump and move faster than the base ability. The base ability, it seems like they kind of stop more before running, whereas with this, they kind of just keep hopping and keep moving faster. In fact, we can quickly do a comparison. That might maybe just be in my head. Though it does seem like these guys stop a little bit more before hopping again. Next up is a Toad of Hugeness. And I guess I should probably demonstrate this in actual combat. The Toads of Hugeness, you summon one big frog that will swallow up an enemy and do 28% of your weapon damage per second over 5 seconds, or rather, every second for 5 seconds, but it adds a 5-second cooldown to the ability. I cannot recommend this ability, but let me show it. Okay, so you summon a frog, he eats somebody, and he does 140% weapon damage over 4 seconds. 140% weapon damage is nothing impressive. Notice how he didn't even do barely any damage to this zombie. And even with a way better weapon, it's just 140% weapon damage per second to a single target every 5 seconds. It does not work on champions and uniques, so you can't use it for crowd control in that respect. And if you want to use something for crowd control against regular enemies, just use Hex. And they can chicken enemies for good periods of time, and they give you a bunch of other benefits. Whereas this, it's just damage, and you're taking one enemy out of combat for a period of time for 5 seconds, every 5 seconds. It's not very useful. It doesn't do good damage. It's cool, and it's funny, but it still doesn't work on champions or uniques, and that's what you would really want to use it against. Whereas Chicken, by the way, does. It doesn't last very long, but it does work. Hex, rather. So nothing really impressive.
Not ready yet.
Can't recommend it. I mean, look how many castings it took me. Even for a supplementary ability, it's just not very good. Okay, enough of that. Okay, next up we have Rain of Toads, which also totally changes the ability. Rather than shooting out a cluster of toads, you rain toads down from the sky that do 130% weapon damage as poison to enemies in the area over 2 seconds. But it ticks extremely quickly. It ticks at least once per second, if not more than once per second. So I will also demonstrate this. So here we go. Here's the same zombies we were working on. They have fully healed. Now we rain toads down upon them. This ability is great when paired with slows or roots or something. Even without, though, you can still kill targets really quickly with it. It's one of your highest DPS abilities on the Witch Doctor, along with Splinters and Zombie Bears. And it's not really that mana intensive for how much damage it does. And I actually have a build based around this called the Rain Man build, even, which you could just search for my name and Rain Man and you would find it. I'm probably not going to remember to put a link to it at this point in the video, because this is going to be a freaking long video. My channel has all my builds and all my videos and stuff too, if you're interested. But yeah, that is Rain of Toads. Really cool, really flavorful. One of my favorite attacks in the game, and my bread and butter through basically all of Nightmare and a good portion of Hell. That's one ability that you could use as a replacement for Splinters and not really feel too guilty about it, because it's really fun, and it does fairly comparable damage, really. It does a ton of damage, and it also does it in an area of effect. That's a small area of effect, but it is an area of effect. Okay, let us now switch to Addling Toads. Addling Toads just gives the Toads a small chance to confuse targets for 4 seconds. Can't recommend it. Doesn't really do any more damage, and the confuse has a really small chance to proc. Looks cool, but there are way better options, in my opinion, than Addling Toads. And then finally, you have an interesting passive. You have Toad Affinity that just makes the ability free, but it doesn't make it do any more damage. So if you are having intense mana problems or something, you could use this and just have a straight-up free ability. Or if you had a secondary ability that was really mana-intensive, you could, like, say, Fire Bats, Dire Bats, or Zombie Bears, or Locust Swarm. I mean, there's a ton. I don't really need to list all of them. Spirit Barrage, whatever. If you have a really mana-intensive secondary skill, you could use this as a free skill while you're regenerating mana or something. So it does have strategic use, but it doesn't do any more damage than the base ability. So unless you are using a powerful secondary, I wouldn't really recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it as a primary, because you can use the base ability or the other runes, really, and it's not mana-intensive. You could just spam it and do just fine as well. So I would only recommend this if you are using something that costs a lot of mana as a secondary skill. Okay, so that's Plague of Toads. Next up is Firebomb. Firebomb is 85% weapon damage is fired to all enemies within 8 yards. For those of you that are illiterate, apparently. I don't know why I'm reading it off, since you guys can just read it, but whatever. So you shoot a grenade, essentially, that explodes and does damage. Pretty cool, pretty effective. I used it for a good amount of time. Good job. That's kind of a bitch. Especially for a wizard. Anyway, next up we have Flash Fire, which basically you throw it onto one guy and it bounces onto everybody else for reduced damage. Yeah, I'm gonna have to actually show this in combat, I guess. So, here we go. You throw it, and little fireballs bounce to everybody else. Just once, though. Once per casting. So you could throw it on 5 guys, and you would have 5 fireballs on everybody else, basically. Pretty solid. It's a nice rune to start with, but I believe the other runes are definitely better choices. Leave me alone. So, you can see just lots of little fireballs all over the place. You, go away. You go away! Ow! Well, enough of that. We can move on to something else. Next up, we have Roll the Bones, which causes the skull to bounce twice. So I throw it, it bounces, I throw it, bounces twice. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Essentially. This is what I used when I was using the ability as a bread and butter through the portion of the game when I just used it in my Fricka Chicka Bomber build, which you can also see on my channel. And it's actually quite effective. You can hit single targets twice with it. If you just throw it in front of them, they will get hit by 2 bounces. And it's very, very effective at dealing with crowds. Far more so, I would say, than Flash Fire. Because Flash Fire, yes, it can hit up to 6 additional targets, but every single time it's reduced by 15% per bounce. So not very effective, ultimately. Nice for the first rune, but it's quickly outshone by Roll the Bones. Next up is Fire Pit, which leaves behind a pool that does 8% weapon damage per second. It's fire for 3 seconds, which can be quite powerful if you do have a good snare, and you can just lock enemies in place. But practically speaking, and you can just kind of stack the fires on top of each other as well. I found Roll the Bones to be more effective in practice against most enemies, certainly by the point in the game that you unlock Fire Pit, though it is a good choice and it does do a good amount of damage. It's just practically enemies tended to move out of the way. But if you do have a party member that has a good snare, like, say, a Demon Hunter, or you're using Grasp of the Dead or something, and maybe couple that with Medusa Spiders for even more snare goodness, you could make it work, I would say. But I think there are better choices ultimately, and you'd really need to build around this ability to make it as effective as Roll the Bones is just out of the box. Then we have Pyro Geist, which creates a really tiny column of fire. I was kind of disappointed about that. I was kind of hoping for something of biblical proportions, just huge column of fire, but it's really just a stinky little thing. And it spews fire damage for 140% weapon damage over 3 seconds. I was very disappointed in this ability, and you can see this is just what it does. Little column, shoots out a couple little fireballs. It actually does terrible, terrible damage. Roll the Bones and Fire Pit are both better than this. It's actually quite useless, practically speaking. Unfortunate, but what can you do? And then lastly, we have Ghost Bomb, which is pretty cool. It against even an individual target will do 20% additional weapon damage. So you'll be doing 105% weapon damage to your main target. And then you do just 20% to everybody in 28 yards. And 28 yards in this game is gigantic. It's almost the full screen. I mean, it's a huge, not the full screen, but it's a huge, huge radius. And it makes it blue, so you can rock out some blue fire for those of you that are interested in that sort of thing. I don't know. And I suppose I could just demonstrate it. Oh, that's my alarm. I need to start getting ready for work now. Yay. Okay, let me quickly demonstrate this in combat. You unlock this skill at level 60, this rune at level 60, so this is a very, very, very late game rune. So I toss it. Even from right here, you can see the guy on my right is being damaged. Not for much, though. It does only do 20%. This is really a skill that you use just to spam, in addition to, say, fire bats or something else, for just supplementary damage. It's just more damage against a single target. I believe it's the most damage you can do against a single target with Firebomb, barring hitting them twice with Roll the Bones, which would do more, and getting them to stand in a fire pit for a long period of time. But it's just a nice spammable ability that can do damage that just adds up over time to large crowds. Remember, yes, it's not doing much damage to these guys, these just tertiary and whatever guys, these extra guys, but you're doing it to huge groups of people, so it does add up over time. And it's just a free ability, essentially, that you can spam. Personally, I think it's fun, but ultimately, Roll the Bones is probably still better. It's just once you hit level 60, you want to use level 60 runes that you haven't used before. You know, that's one of the problems with this game, the way it's balanced. I just unlocked this thing at level 60, but it's actually worse than something I unlocked at level 2, in the case of Splinters, or whatever, level 6. I think it's the first rune you unlock in the case of Splinters. But that's it, guys. These were the Witch Doctor's primary skills. I will be doing a video for literally all of his skills and just kind of talk about them and show them and give you guys an idea of what you have to look forward to as a Witch Doctor. And, you know, if you don't like what you see, then hey, you won't be wasting 48 hours or so to level a Witch Doctor to 60, or if not longer. So, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. Please like the video if you thought it was educational and you enjoyed it. Please sub if you'd like to see more Diablo 3. Leave comments, feedback, and questions, and I'll answer them. And have a good one.